Approximately 2 months ago, I made a video on my top 15 most underrated roller coaster credits. Truth be told, I'm a very positive guy when it comes to this stuff. I actually find most coasters to be underappreciated because for some reason, a lot of enthusiasts don't like to praise objectively good rides like B&Ms. But regardless, I said in that video that I would not be making a list of my most overrated credits because I don't like looking at rides in that way. Trust me, I really don't, and there's very few coasters I've ever ridden where I've come off saying it's overrated. However, you guys really seem to like these kinds of videos, and I'm running low on quality video ideas, so I've kinda changed my mind. Just don't expect too many videos down the line of me being a critic towards parks or coasters. So a couple of things before we dive in. One, I have not ridden every coaster in the world nor in the country. I'm sure there are some rides out there that are not quite as good as people make them out to be, but I have not experienced all of them, so you'll have to bear with me here. Also, these are just my opinions. I have a couple of really unpopular ones, but I hope you can still respect them. Lastly, these videos take a lot of time to create, so a like, comment, and subscription would mean the world to me. But now I think we're ready to begin, so here are my top 10 overrated roller coaster credits as of March 2021. Before we get into this, I have to reiterate that this is going to be such a sloppy and somewhat out of order list since I hardly consider any roller coasters to be overrated, but no more excuses, let's get right into it. Number 10, Wonder Woman Golden Lasso Coaster at Six Flags Fiesta, Texas. Please take this pick with a grain of salt. Wonder Woman is absolutely amazing, and it ranks in my overall top 15 coasters I have ever ridden. The main problem here is that most elite coasters I ride seem to blow my already high expectations out of the water. With Wonder Woman, I wouldn't really say that was the case. Instead, I got off saying that was amazing, but it's about as good, if not slightly worse than expected. Now again, I loved my several rides in Wonder Woman, please don't forget that, but if I have to pick 10 whole coasters that I find to be overrated, there are going to be some tough calls. I also definitely think I suffered a bit of recency bias. When I first got off, before the ride even warmed up, I said it was like the best thing ever. Now, after 3 months of gathering my thoughts, I think I'd definitely take Iron Rattler over it. But still, this coaster crushes just about every other coaster in Texas, which is no small feat. My biggest problem with the ride were the restraints, which were really tight and restricting, and honestly they were worse than I was expecting. Everything else was basically perfect though, so that's why I put this at the very bottom of my list. Still an outstanding ride. Number 9, Grizzly at King's Dominion. Another low spot on this list is low on here for a reason. I rode Grizzly in 2018, back when my tolerance for roughness was much lower than it is now. Later that year and throughout 2019, hype for this ride started building up seemingly out of nowhere, and now I really want to give it a second chance. To be honest, I am almost certain that I'll like it more than I did then, and here's why. Wild Beast at Canada's Wonderland is a near replica of this ride, but without the forested setting. I rode that coaster in 2019, where my tolerance for roughness had built up quite a bit since. I got off Wild Beast thinking it was one of the most underrated rides I'd ever experienced, so I know I'm not satisfied with putting its sister coaster on my overrated list. I'm simply putting it on here because my experience with Grizzly was the only experience I've had with Grizzly, but I'm certain it'll be off this list when I return to the park, hopefully this year. Number 8, Colossus the Fire Dragon at Lagoon. Over time, I've started to lose appreciation for sit-down coasters that focus on positive G-forces and positive G-forces only. Short scuff coasters are a prime example of this. I honestly don't love their rides like most people do. Colossus the Fire Dragon is usually regarded as the second or third best coaster at Lagoon, and while I did enjoy it for what it was worth, I still wouldn't rank it any higher than 5 in the park. I easily preferred Spider, Roller Coaster, and Wicked to this thing. The double vertical loops are just a bit much for me, especially on a super hot day, but it was still a classic credit that I'm glad I was able to grab. Number 7, Candemonium at Hershey Park. So just like Wonder Woman Golden Lasso Coaster, Candemonium is a ride that I absolutely love, so don't let this placement get to you very much. I'm only putting it on here because I think it's pretty obvious that recency bias formed right after the ride opened. People were already trying to tell us enthusiasts that it was better than Mako or that it was the best B&M hyper in the country. While I did have an open mind, I knew that if I went in with those expectations, I'd be severely disappointed. So I didn't, and I came off really enjoying Candemonium. Had it not opened recently, I don't think this would even be on the list, but I had to express my thoughts because I really think it stands true. But for me, this is my new number 2 ride in the park, and I definitely had a lot of fun with it. Number 6, White Lightning at Fun Spot Orlando. Okay, yeah, White Lightning is one of the few coasters I've ridden where I can say with 100% certainty that it is a little bit overrated. Back in 2018, when I first rode this thing, everyone was saying it was super smooth, fast-paced, and a great GCI. Funny enough, the hype has seriously died down for this ride over the years, and it's easy for me to see why. Now, I have a really high tolerance for roughness, and I'm not here to complain about how White Lightning's roughness ruined the ride, because it didn't. I am, however, going to say that it is not as smooth as people used to say. I actually find Mindblower to be smoother than White Lightning, and that ride is also pretty dang rough. And while we're on the topic of Mindblower, everyone used to say that White Lightning was the superior Fun Spot Woody. Maybe it's just my tastes, but I found Mindblower to be by far better and more intense than White Lightning. I'd still say it's worth checking out if you have a couple hours to burn, but it's definitely not anything to shout at. Number 5, Skull Mountain at Six Flags Great Adventure. Now I know the hype that's been built around this ride is more for the memes than anything, but yeah, I know there's still some huge Skull Mountain fans out there. In 2020, I only got to ride this once and it was in the front row. I have a gut feeling that not riding in the back was my problem because everyone always says that you have to sit in the back for the airtime. So honestly, I don't find this ride too underrated if that's the case. I simply didn't ride it right then, but I will say that there is absolutely nothing else going for it. It's probably one of the most lackluster and dull family coasters I've ever ridden in that front row. I have nothing more to add really, but I promise to give it a second chance when I come back to the park this year. Number 4, Big Thunder Mountain Railroad at Disneyland. So I really don't know how to feel about this placement. I kinda just threw it in here last second since I had one open spot. Every now and then, I see theme park nerds absolutely raving about Thunder Mountain, and even some coaster enthusiasts saying they'd take it over rides like Space Mountain and Matterhorn sometimes. Me personally, I don't understand how that's even possible. It's a nice long ride that I enjoy riding when I can, but it's definitely not anything to rave about. And that's evident in that I don't usually see people raving about Thunder Mountain, but the occasional Disney fan or coaster enthusiast will definitely overhype it. In my opinion, it's the worst major roller coaster at the Disneyland Resort by far. By that, I mean it's definitely the worst outside of Goofy Sky School and Gadget's Go Coaster. Again, still a fun ride, but some do overhype it a bit. Number 3, Premier Ride Skyrocket 2s. I talked earlier about how I'm not a huge fan of rides that just focus on positive G's in a sit-down train. Well, that's definitely true, especially when you're in a cramped sit-down train like on the Skyrocket 2s, and especially when you're in a cramped sit-down train that even mixes in some hang time, which is some of my least favorite sensations on coasters. The reason I don't completely dislike these rides, however, is because of the vertical drop in the back row, but everything else is either too repetitive or uncomfortable or boring. I will say that I understand why enthusiasts love these rides, but they just aren't my cup of tea. And I don't want to make it sound like I don't like intense coasters, because rides like Skyrush and Intimidator 305 are in my top 5 overall coasters I've ever ridden. It's just something about these Skyrocket 2s that really don't excite me all that much, and I'm guessing it's because of how repetitive they are. Number 2, Yukon Striker at Canada's Wonderland. Something similar happened with this ride that happened with Candemonium. People originally started saying that it was the best dive coaster ever, like in the entire world. Now I will say that the layout is quite a bit different than the other dive coaster layouts, and I do like that about it. But the way it rides is just kind of underwhelming. Let's first touch on the restraints. I had always heard that these were much looser than the ones on Valravn, but I rode that coaster a week prior and thought the exact same way about the vest restraints. They are obnoxiously restrictive and prevent any airtime you could get on the drops, and I know this because I absolutely love Sheikra, particularly for that reason. It's also just lacking in a lot of smaller things, like I would have loved to see a splashdown somewhere on this ride. But whatever, that second thing is just me getting a bit nitpicky since I've been spoiled by Sheikra. But I mean, I definitely still enjoy this ride for sure, like no doubt it's the 3rd best coaster in this park, but in my opinion, it's an overhyped ride that I would not travel a long distance to experience. Number 1, Magnum XL200 at Cedar Point. I already know that a lot of you are about to click off of the video after hearing this, but let me explain myself. Some people rank Magnum way too high, like I don't know where the hell it came from, but when people started ranking Magnum as a top 25 or 30 coaster in the world, I'd just be left scratching my head. I'll start with the pros. I absolutely love that airtime finale. It's extremely sustained, powerful, violent ejector airtime over and over again. But as for the cons, just look at the entire rest of the ride. The first half is just okay at best, and the middle section is stupid. That turnaround is like so dumb, like what even is this profiling? And let me make it clear that I don't dislike Magnum, nor do I find it overrated for its roughness. I actually think Cedar Point has done a wonderful job at maintaining this ride, but the way it rides through its layout is just so meh. You get 0 airtime on any of the large hills, and as I said, that turnaround segment is stupid. Then the finale just kind of saves the ride, and really that's all people talk about with this thing. I just don't think a good or even great finale is enough to make this coaster elite, and for that reason, I will never ever understand people that rank this over Maverick, Dragster, or Millennium Force. Thank you all so much for watching. This was a bit of a tricky video to make since I really don't find many coasters to be overrated, but regardless, I did stick through it and I hope you guys all enjoyed. If you did, a like, comment, and subscription would mean a lot to me. Thanks everyone, and I'll see you all very soon. Bye guys.